All right, so welcome back to another episode with us on Divine Ethereal Beings. I'm really excited about this one because this is really up my alley. We're going to talk a little bit more about today the soul journey. So, things, how we kind of come into this life, why certain things maybe happen the way they do, and then, of course, what kind of happens to us after our physical life as well. Now, as a medium, I get asked this a lot, so I thought it'd be a fun topic to just kind of explore and talk into. And this one, I really just want everybody to know, like, this is just perspective. I mean, every intuitive might have some different words or put this in different ways, and that's all okay. This is just kind of how we've experienced things and how some of, that understanding has come for us, I guess. So that's what we're going to dive into today. And I am beyond excited on this one because I can already feel my guides have just like popped right in because like this is totally their wheelhouse. So I'm super excited to get started on talking on all this fun stuff. And for me, I would say that when I started to learn more about this, though, life in general kind of started to make a little bit more sense. It didn't feel so nonsense anymore. Like it felt like there really was a path that's been set out for us here. So when we come in, sometimes we can feel like we're flailing fish and we just don't know what the hell this is all about, sometimes. And when I got this perspective, it started to make a little bit more sense. It's not going to be things that you're going to be able to figure out every piece of your life from, but maybe some things will start to kind of fall into place of like, oh, okay, there always has kind of been this bigger picture that I just didn't see, and for good reason. We don't see it as human. We're not meant to see all the pieces, but sometimes it can give you a little sense of like, oh, okay, you know what? There's a master puzzle here. I'm just a piece of it. And there was only things that I came in here with understanding, but now I can breathe a little easier, I guess, knowing that there was definitely things put in place for a reason before we even got into this whole physical life here. First thing they're dropping in on me is talking about how we actually choose our parents. And I know this can be a bit of a sore subject if you don't always have the best relationship with your parents, but how we actually do choose that for good reason. There's usually things that our soul's wishing to learn from or experience from within those relationships with parents. And I know you know lots about this one because this is stuff we've talked about quite a bit. And I think it's quite a bit of interesting conversation, honestly, when you kind of start to dive into why did I choose my parents? And first off, your brain's going to be like, well, I don't know, they're just our parents. But there's usually something deeper there that we're meant to be learning. And sometimes we're here to also teach our parents as well. It doesn't always go one way or the other. So do you have anything to contribute to choosing your parents?
Hmm. Yeah, so lots was coming in. And we get to look at this from multiple pathways even. So like our parents have a genetic makeup and their biophysical human form that is very specific as well, right? And so that can be one angle we could look at this from. And kind of on the little bit more out there side too, that biophysical human genetic lineage form of your parents also holds star family genetics in that DNA. So, an expression of your star family DNA would be another pathway and angle that you might choose a particular parents or family or physical human lineage, right? And then, like, yeah, they're like, okay, back to genetics again, right? Like your ancestry and your human ancestry lineage. Like I'm a European mutt, okay? And so like literally French, Dutch, Irish, Norwegian, German, and Hungarian, but we're actually not Irish, we're English. Like there's all this complex stuff in there. But it's like I bring forward so much of kind of the spiritual traditions and lineage from that ancestry that bring me into the makeup and understanding and the wisdom and the keys of wisdom that unlock in my spiritual and physical human DNA now. And so like there's so much that goes into play. And then it's like the lessons I came here to learn, right? Like I chose to come into things that were going to be very dense for me as a unique individual soul to kind of like work through. So just like a very like my family, my parents, like weren't, they're very like kind of conservative and but also not religious, so it's a little bit weird, interesting dynamic. And they definitely don't drink, they don't gamble, they're like very like walk the line, but yet they're not in a religious construct. So there are reasons why I chose that. They have these specific pieces as part of their makeup and their story and their experience, right? So my life is so much about transformation, which includes transmuting, right? And so this was my pathway into doing that, and to really kind of um, bring light into particular patterns that exist in the collective, and kind of like I chose, like I'm signing up for this piece of earth school, right?
Yeah,
So
it's true. And that's the really neat part, right? Is you kind of start to discover these things about why we came in. And that also partially comes down to also understanding and discovering your purpose, and that purpose can change throughout your lifetime. But in those different pieces is often when you start to understand, oh, okay, I understand why or what I was supposed to be learning from my parents, or why I chose this family to come into. I did giggle because when you brought up the whole genetics piece and about the star seed, I feel like super, super relevant, actually, for both of us very much so. I very much look like my star seed even here on this lifetime. So it is one of those things that sometimes when you derive from that certain look, you may come in wanting to look more like where you've derived from as well. So some people, that's why when some people start to learn about some of the other beings out there, they really, really click and they connect and they're like, oh my God, I actually kind of look like them. Well, it's probably because you're in relation to them in a genetic way as well. And you will choose to somewhat have that still even on Earth, because we do try to represent our true self in certain aspects, right? Even in our physical body. So it's a really neat perspective. It is. It's a pretty it's out there. I can understand how some people are like, whoa, I don't know, but it's okay. I know it's different, but it's fun to kind of explore it for yourself and start kind of thinking about, I wonder how this makes it, why I chose this, or why this maybe got chosen for me here. What am I supposed to be learning here? Because as soon as you start asking yourself why, I guarantee you the questions will kind of continue, and you'll start to get some answers for yourself probably eventually, as the more open you become in asking your questions. And so,
yeah,
throughout our lifetimes, that's the whole point, is to ask why sometimes.
yeah, yeah. They're also dropping in kind of adding an additional angle. So when you're a parent, it's important to understand this from a parental perspective about your kids as well. So if, let's just the instance of, being married and getting divorced, but you have kids, like there's sometimes honestly, like the sole contract for that marriage can be multiple things. But when kids are involved, generally as well, part of that contract was the souls of those kids choosing to have those two parents for all the reasons we're talking about. Like I have two teenage boys. I've done so much lineage healing for my side, and that has been for them, but I can't do the lineage healing for them, right? And it's like from that star family perspective, my lineage expresses Syrian traits very strongly, and his, I believe it was Pleiadian, is what his lineage expresses. And so the souls of my children wanted that specific mix because it also lends them to specific kind of gifts as well through your star family. So yeah, it's important to have the perspective both ways when you're a parent. So looking at it backwards and forwards generationally.
Yeah, which is a beautiful thing too. And then keeping in mind, no matter what, your children are also here on their own journey. And there will just be certain things, as you said, that they are just going to have to move through for themselves, because that's what they came here to do. And sometimes I understand that can be really hard as parents, because you want to help as much as you can. But, they're eventually going to grow up and be adults no matter what. So they're all going to make their own choices. But even on that deeper level, every single one of us has come in here with our own journey, no matter what. Even for myself and my little brother being so much younger than me, there's still that protective, growly kind of line that every now and then wants to come out, right? Because I want to protect him. But also, I had to get to a point where I was like, you know what, he's here on his own journey too, and I can't be the one always stepping in to make sure that he's okay. Because if I do that, he's not going to learn either, or he will. It just might be really delayed.
Right.
So,
Well,
yeah,
and then, and maybe this is relevant to your situation too. You can speak into it or not, but also as a parent, like it's important to understand that they're here to teach us just as much as we're teaching them. And so, like, just for an example, my oldest is like, he's a old wise soul, like very gifted and very like sturdy and solid, and like I don't worry about him at all. My youngest, on the other hand, pushes my buttons. Like me and my oldest, we're like such good friends, and my youngest and I are too, but it's like that kid pushes my buttons and tests me. And there's a very specific reason and what he's mirroring for me to kind of heal in like the parental lineage pattern for this lineage, like this parenting style that I received and how I was punished, very punished severely for certain things. And it's like, and he's pushing all those buttons for me of what I, so that I can parent in a more not a better way, but in a place that comes more from love and understanding and
different
compassion.
vibration.
Yeah, exactly. A different frequency of parenting and healing that, so that we're always in that forward evolution for humans. So
Right, which brings us like to our next part of our journey here in general is about growth and expansion. And one of the biggest things I think I learned that actually gave me a bit of giggle, but it was so relevant in that moment where I was in a meditation once and I was with my team and they were like, your soul will cause drama when it's bored. I thought, oh, is that not the truth though? It tries to shake up things to say, let's go, let's get moving again, let's get growing, let's expand. And I know that that's part of human life here. That's part of the reason why billions upon billions of souls want to be here is not just because of the growth and expansion that happens here, but the duality of that choice and free will of actually choosing to take action on it or not. It is one of the deepest learnings that some souls actually get is from living here on earth as humans. So, in a way I feel very blessed because in a way most of us all sitting here have kind of won the lottery. I mean, you think about billions upon billions of souls want to be here, yet we're the ones sitting here and we're getting this chance to be here. It gives you kind of this outlook of like, oh wow, right, I'm here for a reason. I managed to get in here as much as it feels bumpy and it's always not the nicest thing, but the growth and expansion is what will feed a soul. It says, okay, thank you for, allowing us to grow and expand where we always have wanted to, even though I understand you as human don't always get, that's what we're here to do. But our higher self, God, source, universe, whatever you want to say that you're connected to, there is always something larger saying, okay, next step. We can't just stand still because time technically does never stand still. It's always just now. So let's move. And so when you start moving, this is when I start finding a lot of people start feeling better. And I'm not talking about exercise, like actually moving physical body necessarily, but making choices to do things differently always tends to make people feel better after a while. And I know that you always hit the bump and the scary and the fear always comes up after a little while, but if you really think about that initial thought process of if you got really frustrated of doing something the same way or you were done with something and you finally chose to change it, even that decision of finally choosing to change it feels good. It feels like, oh, got a little space back all of a sudden, I can breathe a little easier because I just finally made that decision to move. So that comes down to understanding, that's what we're mainly here for. But yes, there is a soul journey too, that some parts of our life are going to happen no matter what. And that can also come down to losing certain people. That can come down to certain soul contracts, as we mentioned. And soul contracts is like a whole nother, a whole nother probably episode in itself because there's a lot to soul contracts. But I would say the basis of a soul contract would be two souls kind of signing up to say, this is what I'm going to be for you in this lifetime, or this is what we need to get together so we can learn from this, or we can have our children together, whatever is going to possibly be there for us to grow from. Now, does every soul contract get completed? No, not always. Not always in that lifetime. Sometimes you just make different choices when you're here as human, and that's okay. But just know that those soul contracts exist, and sometimes they are very hard to necessarily break or get away from because they're meant to happen for good reasons. One of
And
mine probably
also, you can
Go
rewrite
ahead.
them. You can rewrite them. I mean, it's
Yeah, to an extent, I guess you can. Yeah. I mean, depending, I guess, maybe on what it is, for sure. I mean, obviously losing somebody in your life, you're probably not going to be able to necessarily rewrite those ones, but the connections with your people in this lifetime, definitely. I've seen it happen quite a few times.
I've done it. That's the only reason
I've done it.
well, it takes a level of awareness, right? And a level of ability to be in the work or working with someone who has that kind of
Right.
like
Because it has to be, I think, probably a mutual agreement, considering if it can involve more than just yourself, right?
exactly. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, for sure. Which is an interesting concept too. But I mean, needless to say, I would say probably most people, even for myself, I don't always recognize soul contracts. Like
Oh,
most of us don't
no.
even recognize them that they're there. And that's okay. Most of them really are pretty minor for the most part. It is interactions with other people. And then you get the big ones. And the big ones usually are the ones that are going to happen no matter what, so things like for me to get where I am today and my big shakeup and my slap of reality is what I like to call it. That was a massive soul contract between myself, a family member and a friend. And it needed to happen like that, because if it didn't happen like that, I really don't feel like I would be sitting here today. I don't feel like I would be as far along in my own journey, in my own understanding of my own spiritual self either, because I needed that shakeup to make me actually move. I was stuck in the same wheel. So I needed that slap in the face in a way to shake me hard enough to say that, right, I'm actually not happy. I want to move. So I made a different choice, and that trajected me on a completely different way. But that's kind of one of those moments, and I'm sure if everybody could probably think about a moment in your life where you've either lost somebody or you just made a big shakeup in your life just because you needed to, you needed to get out where you were, or whatever was finally kind of pushed you to the edge. But usually it's something external like that that'll push us to the edge, because it doesn't usually come within ourselves. Not very often. Not very often. I think the only other times I've ever seen that is if, someone's been in an accident or something like that, where their own life was almost taken, and then it was enough to shake them out of whatever they were doing. But I think for the most part, I would say most people probably have it as like an external factor between things, situations.
Yeah, and I guess just when we like say you can rewrite them, it's more about how we perceive them. It's
Yeah.
and even in relation to kind of the topic beforehand and leading into this, it's like we often our perception of what the soul contract or what the lesson is not always accurate to what it actually is. So a soul contract, oh, I'm supposed to be with this person and I was supposed to get married and supposed to have these kids. I could have interpreted that as, oh my gosh, I have to stay with this person forever no matter what. And it's like, okay, no, that's where maybe the rewriting occurs. It's reperceiving that, like, oh, that's not actually what it was. I was to have this interaction, have this contract, do this thing, and then like the soul contract comes to completion and we
Hmm.
get to move on. But that's definitely not pertaining to kind of like where you're coming from with losing people and things like
Yeah.
that. And so often, because we are meaning making machines as humans and everything does have meaning, right? I think it is, yeah, there's a lot of misperception and we tend to hold on to and get attached to things and what we think that they mean, and even the lessons, right? The karmic lessons, the karmic chains, and what we're doing here. Um, you know, it's more of a reperceiving and a reframing maybe than a rewriting. That might be a
Yeah, I like that. That's a really great perspective on that. I agree with you on that 100%. And the other piece too is, what they keep dropping in is just don't overthink all of it. You know, we get, that's the thing is we want to make meaning out of all of it. So then we start sometimes overthinking it, then we get confused, and then we end up in this repeat mode, you know, and it's like, don't overthink anything in your life, you know, just move through with the flow of it, the emotions, the thought process, just let them be, but don't rabbit hole yourself, you know, into making yourself feel almost anxious or overwhelmed by those things. Because I understand life, like when you think about the fact that you came in here with a journey and a purpose, and that there was going to be things that are going to happen that you have no real control over, you know, that can make anybody feel a little overwhelmed and being like, what do you mean by that, right? But at the same time, it's meant to be this flow that you can you just trust in the process that you're meant here to be doing and learning from, you know? And everybody wants to say, oh, well, I need to know what my life's purpose is, you know, here. Well, one of all of our life's purposes is to just learn and grow and expand here. So it, just because you're not niched down per se into like something very specific, where maybe right now, Dayna and I, we both know what we really love doing. Is that necessarily our whole life's purpose? No, I wouldn't say that, because we're multi-dimensional beings. So there can be all sorts of different purposes for all of us. So don't get wrapped up in all the shit that people throw and say, well, you only have one purpose here. You need to find it, you know, because that is overwhelming. And then it puts this pressure on us to say, oh, well, we better find this. Otherwise we're not living our own, like our life to our fullest either. But yet then there's this contradictory piece where it's like, but be a good employee and work your job and do what you need to do to make, you know, make a living kind of deal as well. And so that's, it's very complex and frustrating, because it feels like you're getting two messages from two different areas, right? Your heart's saying, okay, let's just live and enjoy the shit out of our life, and we'll find our passion and purposes as we go along. And then you've got this other one from society screaming at you to say, well, you better just be a good employee and don't think for yourself too hard, you know, because that's not good either. So it's just this mix mash of energy that's constantly being tossed around. But that's the duality of Earth as well. There's a 50-50 here. And it's up to us as individuals to find our own balance, find your own truth, find your balance, and then move forward in the world that way. Because when you get your own perspective and you have that discernment to know, it makes things easier. But the discernment can't come until you understand your own energy and your own self in a way that you just have to kind of accept that we're all here on different levels. We're all here for different purposes. Yes, that's fine, because we're all supposed to be a unique piece of the puzzle. We can't all be the same thing, you know. We can do similar things, but everybody's energy is going to be different. Hence why we've all come here on a journey that was kind of preset by our soul. And we're not meant to be in the same cup.
Yeah, and with that, like even when we talk about balance, like you get to figure out and define what that is for you. That's the point. To stop letting society and other people tell you what that is. Like we are here to, like, that's part of our purpose. Discover what that is for us as unique individual sovereign beings. And whether it's, for me it's more like, what is my stability, what do I need my foundation to look like to be stable, and then I have balance, right? Like what even is balance, and do I want, for me personally, my perception of balance is not this center point standing still, right? Because for me and my perception, if I'm, you have the pendulum swinging, and if I'm sitting here in the middle, I'm not moving. I have to be swaying a little bit back and forth in order to be in a forward momentum, right? And so it is redefining for yourself how you perceive and think about things is such a great invitation into your growth, expansion, and you know moving through whatever you come to move through, because also trusting and knowing you're not going to be presented with things you're not capable of traversing and navigating and moving through, and you have the power by choice, by thought, of how you're going to flow through that, or kick and scream and be in resistance through it. It's your choice what the experience is like.
Absolutely. It does come down to choice. And that is free will. You know, that's a universal law here on earth, is free will. As much as, you know, I've had people come and sitting down in front of me in readings and say, just tell me where I'm supposed to be and what I'm supposed to be doing. I can't tell you exactly what that is. I can give you an understanding of clarity and some guidance, but you still have to make that decision for yourself. As much as I wish I could say that it's an easy process, it's not. It's uncomfortable as shit. And a lot of people don't want to be uncomfortable. So in which why the resistance comes kicking and screaming, right? And where we are on earth right now, many people are not being given much of a choice anymore. Mother Earth is saying, you know what, you have to face your shit, whether you like it or not. And how long that's going to take you to move through, that is up to you. So again, it's are you going to just choose to get in the boat and pull in your oars and stop fighting the waves? Or are you wanting to fight the waves because you feel out of control? I think that's the biggest thing a lot of people feel in this lifetime as well. Many of us, and I know we've all been there. We've all felt out of control. I understand that. And to an extent, I get when it's at the external things, with other people or situations or worldly things that you can't control. You can't control that. But what you can control is how you react to it, or whether you're even paying attention to it anymore. The negative shit, let go of it, because it's not
Yeah.
going to help anything.
So there's this kind of visual that's been dropping in for me for a few days. I was actually trying to create some AI art and some things to post about this, but it's like so often as we're navigating these things, and it's like one door closes or we light a bridge on fire to burn it, and we stand there and we watch it and we stare at it instead of like, okay, accept, acknowledge, the door is closed, the bridge is burning. Now turn around and go find the next open door or the next bridge.
Yeah,
Really.
don't dwell on it.
Don't just sit there in attachment staring and then wonder why you're feeling stuck and stagnant and not moving. It's like you have to shift and like look for the next opportunity, lesson, contract, whatever it is. Like that's the movement, that's the balance, that's the flow and the navigation. Is it is it's an art, quite frankly. Like,
Yeah, it is. They just dropped on me, they said the past would never exist if one stopped living in it.
yep,
And
you're
that was a
making
pretty
it matter.
powerful one.
Yeah, well, you're making it matter, right? Like if we think about physical matter and then the concept of whether we think something matters or not, it's only matter if we think it matters.
Exactly. It's so
Literally.
true. So true. That's what you'll recreate it in the physical world and matter if you
Yep.
think it matters.
Mhm.
I think that's really powerful. Let's move on to what happens after we are no longer here, because this is another, this is kind of like the next step, obviously. As parts of soul contracts and understanding too, with someone that I grew up and knew just passed away a couple days ago. And I just, I was really angry about it. I'm not gonna lie, but I came to an understanding. I did some really deep, heavy meditation and come to another understanding about how souls sometimes just choose not to be here for a very long time. Sometimes there's just things that you've signed up for that maybe you're not going to get the longest life out of it, but you're meant to make certain impacts, in the way you're meant to make it with your light or whoever you're being in that time frame. And yet it's also to help serve for other people's learning. And I find a lot of it comes down to forgiveness for other people. So losing people young like that, and I cannot tell you how many freaking young people in my life now that I know that have passed away, but it's just, it's one of those things where I was like, right, I have to remember too that sometimes souls just come in to make an impact in a way to help others as well on their own journey, and maybe they don't get the longest life out of that, but usually those people that I do find that are here in that short amount of time make massive impacts on people because they just live in their authentic light naturally in a way that most people actually just naturally can't, right? Most of us have to kind of learn how to lose our sword and shields and stuff like that. And these people just shine. And it's sometimes it happens like that. And I know it can be really hard to accept, but for myself, I think as well, and understanding, sometimes souls just choose that. And it's just for the benefit of other people's learning. It's not like they won't probably get another chance to live a fuller life, here as human at some point, but just to remember, everything happens for a reason. And sometimes choices are made by souls that are just meant to help benefit others in that lifetimes than so much themselves. So after we pass out of our physical life, it is quite an interesting journey that it's a little bit different for everybody. I'm not gonna lie. It just depends on, you know, how accepting someone is to their own crossover, I would say, and their own passing. Most people are very accepting because they see their friends, their family that they've lost, and they're very much greeted and welcomed in a very warm, loving way. Yes, you do a whole life review. So you do look back on your entire life that you've lived here, but in a very, very, very different lens. Okay. We lose that duality of the 50-50 anymore, I would say. So we get to see things in a very, very different way. We remember everything all of a sudden. We remember that we're bigger than, you know, a physical body, and you get to start reintegrating into this energetic world. And I like to say it's like relearning how to ride the bike. It's like we all know how to ride the bike, but it's been probably 15-20 years for some of us, you know. It takes a little bit of time to figure out how to make the pedals work and keep your balance on it again. And that's what I like to say when we come out of physical body and reconnect as a full energetic being, is kind of that process time. And there's masters on the other side that have never lived lives, human life or life elsewhere, and their true duty is just to help all who come out of physical lives reintegrate as a full energetic being. And this process, I make it a minimum for myself. If someone's just passed away and they want to do a reading, I say we have to give it at least 1 month in our time, because, you know, we have to give that respect to the souls as well, that they need their own integration process. They have to move through the things that they need to move through before they're usually ready to like fully come through a medium anyway. Now, they still will send signs and symbols. I do promise you that the masters often make it very well known to the souls that if there's anybody they wish to connect with, they help them do so. So there will be signs and symbols that constantly happen. It's really funny. So my aunt who passed has just popped in and she's like, oh, tell them about what I did. So, so right after her passing, my cousin was with her and my uncle, and she was walking down the hallway of the hospital and she was pretty upset, obviously, and she just said to her, look, I understand that you just passed, but if you are still here, you need to send me a sign right now. And she was standing next to a door with an exit sign above it, and the red glass fell out of the exit sign right at her feet. And she said to me, I'll never forget that, because that was just so prominent and it happened right in front of my face, right? And she knew it came from her. So that's what I'm talking about. Some of these masters will always help, you know, to get through those things if someone's really wanting to connect in that way. And so that's part of the process that starts to happen. And then after that, they come directly to their family. They constantly are with everybody that they love. They're constantly sending signs and symbols. You know, they remember they're infinite beings now. They're like, we have all the time in the world. We'll keep trying and we'll keep trying and we'll keep trying until, you know, hopefully one day it clicks for that person, or they have a reading with somebody, or the door gets open in a different way. I think the biggest thing I've learned from most that have passed from a physical life is that they only wish for everybody to understand that this is not the end, that this is a grief process we absolutely have to move through as a physical being, yes. But what they wish for everybody to know is that they wish to build a different relationship with you from the other side. That's it. And that's what they will continually try and do until either you get it, you know, while you're still here, or you meet them eventually back on the other side yourself. And, you know, you'll rekindle and they'll tell you all about the things that they already saw throughout your entire life, even though, you know, they were on the other side technically. And we only call it the other side because it's for the brain to understand that. I think that it's just something different, because really it's not the other side. It exists within all of us. We're all energy. Everything's made out of energy. We still live in the same world. You know, they're all still here with us. So it's not like they just disappear. You have anything to contribute on that one?
Yeah, I have a lot going on and I'm kind of like,
I
wow,
can see it. It's just like the process.
this could be a rabbit hole. I don't know if we have
It is a
time for
rabbit
this
hole. That's
one.
why I kept it on a base level. You know, there's a lot obviously that happens. I think one of the other things that I just want to say too is a lot of people ask me, well, you know, some people believe in reincarnation and some don't, and that's totally fine. But some people get concerned, you know, that their loved ones are not going to be there for them when they come out of physical life. And that's very, 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 very rare. And I say that because usually, like I said, there was billions of souls waiting to come onto Earth, you know, so it could be a long time before someone chooses to come back into another life. If at all, maybe they don't choose to come back into another life. Maybe they choose to do other things, you know, so, but they're not going to just disappear on anybody. I promise you that. They are still going to be there.
Yeah, and the kind of the first thing that was coming up is people ask like, well, how can they still be in communication with me if they've reincarnated or are in another life or doing other things, and not to go into this. And then it's like, then there's the topic of like time doesn't exist. So when we're talking, like there's so much we could dive into here. And again, we love to overthink and overcomplicate things. And so I think it's really important just to like keep it where it is. And in that is a really great understanding to have. And it doesn't need to be more complicated than that. And if you have more questions and you want to go in depth, then it's like, then that's the time to find a medium or a shaman or a psychic that you really connect with and trust, and take the time to do a deep dive like that, because that's more something that is really beneficial in a one-on-one for
Yeah.
that dialogue and exchange, um, so that the information can be translated in a way that is resonant for the individual, so we can speak it in a way that you're going to be able to understand it, because uh, that's what we do.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. It's very true. It is, like, I think back on some of the readings that I've done and they've dropped in certain pieces because I don't remember obviously a lot of the reading after I'm done with it, but the base concept is usually very similar in each one, for helping someone to understand or helping someone to open up that door so they can have that relationship with their loved ones on the other side. How they can start trusting that information in themselves, because I'm telling you, every single person on earth is naturally psychic. We are all connected to that. It's just we were never taught really how to use it, right? So yeah, go find yourself someone that can help you open that door if you really want to. Or, I say to many people that come and sit down with the mediumship stuff, I always say to them, okay, look, I'm going to open the door for you, and that door is going to be open, and it's going to be up to you to keep it open, because I'm not going to be the middleman forever, right? They really want that connection with you directly. And this is just a way to get the door open for someone else to understand and get the proof sometimes that the brain needs, before it'll accept, certain pieces. But I promise you, it's the best analogy they ever gave me was whipping back the curtain on the little Wizard of Oz, in the Wizard of Oz movie. And they found out that really he was not this big booming voice. He was yelling into a little, microphone. And that's the feeling some people get, the fear of the unknown. They don't know what to do with it. They don't know how to do it. And then all of a sudden you kind of whip back the curtain, you show them, and they're like, oh, well, this is great. This is a really wonderful connection. This is a really great way to heal and move forward with some of your own grief as well. So it's right there. We just got to learn how to do it again. That's all.
Yeah, and I just want to mention a few things. If you want to start tapping into your psychic abilities and intuitive abilities, Dayna's actually offering a course right now, a group course. You could hop in and she could start teaching you that. And I'm sure that's something that we'll offer down the line in the future in our community as well. And we'll kind of pair up on that too.
Yeah.
Uh, and then it's also like, I can feel there's some fear that comes up when people get this concept that, oh, we all have these abilities. And I just want to like point out that yes, we all have psychic abilities. They all vary greatly, and we all have the ability to tune into different things. So just because you're psychic doesn't mean you're going to be a medium and talking to dead people. Like
Yeah.
you don't, like, and you're a divine sovereign being, you're the operant power in body right now, and you get to also kind of help put up the guardrails or the bumper rails in the bowling alley. Like, I'm comfortable with this, I'm not comfortable with this other thing, and you don't have to do that other thing. You still have choice and free will even when we're discussing these realms.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's really prevalent that a lot of the time, even when we've all done our own work, there's been pieces that I got a little freaked out by too, right? And it's like, whoa, I don't know if I want to play in that bowl,
Ah,
but you don't have to, right? That's always something they make it very, very, very known. And I say they, I mean, I'm talking about like my team and the guides and stuff that come in and help us. And I'm sure we'll probably do that in another podcast, talk a little bit more about the teams and, who's all here to help us all and these other beings and stuff, but they always make it very, very well known that you always will have choice. You do not have to say yes just because it's there or it's something you can do. And the other thing is I think a lot of people freak out when I say psychic, that they think I'm saying I can read your mind. Let me tell you right now, I absolutely cannot, and no psychic can absolutely read a mind, not to that extent where I'm reading your thoughts. where some people I think get that from is like you've seen people do like the psychic abilities of like think about something, and I'll tell you what you're focusing on, or the object you're focusing on, or something like that. And I think that's where people think, oh my God, they're reading my mind. And it's not really the same thing, right? When you're being asked to do that and you're giving permission to like have that tapped into, that's a whole different scenario. They're not actually reading your thoughts. It's
Well,
just connecting.
it's telepathy, and telepathy is a psychic ability, and it requires consent and permission and
Yeah.
intention on both sides. So I think
Absolutely.
that
So if you've
that's
never given permission for it, I'm telling you, nobody can actually do it. It's kind of a law and a boundary that's been set out, like universal law almost, because it's like that's overstepping free will. Just like spirit can't just come flying through the door and just come and bug you when they want to, right? It's like, again, you have that line of free will. So that's why they send the signs and symbols, and things like that, trying to get your attention, because they can't step over your free will. So just know it's not meant to scare anybody, and that you still definitely have the control and the power of saying, no, thank you. I'm closing my door. I don't want to be a part of any of that, or I don't want to be feeling any of that. You get that choice. So yeah, it's definitely don't be too concerned that somebody's just reading your thoughts, because it's not actually allowed to happen.
I think that that's a great place to wrap this one up on.
I agree. It was a good one. I enjoyed this topic, but I think I enjoy it because it is like totally my wheelhouse. So
Well, I could go
anyway,
on and on and on down this rabbit hole or that rabbit hole, and we
it's
will.
true. There's lots, and that's the fun part, is like as we talk about it, we're like, ooh, that's a good topic. That's a good topic. So we definitely look out for some more of this kind of stuff. I feel like more and more this will probably kind of come out maybe in the next little bit here. And it's always an interesting perspective. So we thank you for joining us. And our community is coming up, as we kind of mentioned. We're in the works of making some things happen here. So we're super stoked about that, honestly. And we will definitely be blasting that out sooner rather than later.